This is OTR FM, part of the IOM radio network.
Welcome to Cracked, the podcast, the program that slays the dragons of mental health by stripping away the shame, embarrassment, fear, and stigma. Because mental health isn't something that affects just some of us, it applies to all of us. Here to shine a new light on areas of mental health that often go unvisited are your hosts, Rebecca Shaper and Sandy Sedgbeer.
Hello, and welcome to another edition of Cracked, the podcast slaying the dragons of mental health, with me, Sandy Sedgbeer.
And me, Rebecca Shaper.
And this week we're going to be exploring science-based natural approaches to breaking free from anxiety, stress and depression with one of the world's leading authorities on natural medicine, Micahel Murray, MD. A graduate and former faculty member of Bastyr University in Seattle, where he also serves on the Board of Regents, Micahel Murray is not only a best-selling author of over 30 books with 6 million copies in print, but he has literally written the textbook of natural medicine for healthcare practitioners, as well as the Encyclopedia of Natural Medicine for the lay public. And his latest book is called The Longevity Matrix. Dr. Micahel Murray, welcome.
It's my pleasure. It's good to see you both.
Micahel, the world's attention has been focused for the past year on the SARS-CoV-2 pandemic, but reading The Longevity Matrix, it's abundantly clear that there's another pandemic that needs our urgent attention, and that's stress.
Absolutely. Stress is like straws on a camel's back, and for many people, this pandemic was like one big log being placed on that back. But there's a lot of things we can do to make that back stronger and eliminate as much stress as possible.
Micahel, can you explain the difference between stress and anxiety?
Well, So stress is something that reflects our body's response to a stimuli. There's a typical stress response that's a physiological response, and anxiety is generally recognized as an imagined fear, and sometimes that anxiety can overpower us and produce panic. And so, if the fear is real, then, if the tiger's really chasing us, we gotta move.
Yeah,
but
exactly.
if the fear is more imagined or needs to be reframed, there are steps we can take to deal with that. And there's things we can utilize that can help our body respond to fear, whether it's real or imagined, in a better way.
Can you give a little bit of example, like if someone is having intense anxiety, what do they imagine? Can you elaborate on that a little bit more?
If we look at the factors that cause most people emotional stress, finances, relationships, their job. These are things that produce a lot of stress, and sometimes that can boil over to produce anxiety. So a lot of times I look at feelings of anxiety or stress as leverage. It's a way for us to grow, because the reality is that even a single cell organism, an amoeba, needs a certain amount of stress to thrive. If the cell is not being...
That can produce anxiety. You feel that as well?
Yeah, or arguing with it. We get a lot of times, where we kind of bargain with the universe and we maybe don't like what it's showing us, but there's an easier way to approach it, and that is, ask better questions. And I think to a very large extent, the ability of dealing with stress effectively is learning how to communicate in a positive way with your subconscious mind. Let's say something happens that's stressful. We can respond to that with the typical question, why does this always happen to me? Which will cause our subconscious mind to just, give us all the reasons why. Or we can ask maybe a better question. What is it that I need to learn? What do I need to do or not do so this doesn't happen again? That's a more positive and proactive way. And I go through this in the book with some exercises. And our internal mind and our subconscious mind is a lot like our physical body. If we want it to be healthy and strong, we have to condition it. And so I give some rather simple but very powerful ways to help people ask better questions, frame their life in a positive way, become more optimistic. Because the research is quite clear. People who are more optimistic live longer, they're healthier, they're happier. These are things that we all want, and it's easily done if we learn how to be more optimistic and look at the silver lining in the darkest clouds, and learn how we can respond to different stressful events in a positive way.
So you also mentioned in your book that autoimmune disease can cause a lot of stress. Do you feel women are more prone than men to develop autoimmune issues? If so, why?
There's a lot of theories as to why women get more autoimmune disorders, but it's this COVID-19 showed some differences between men and women. For example, it was shown that men, about 10% of men seem to develop autoantibodies to interferon. Interferon is one of our own internal antiviral compounds, and if we develop an antibody to it, then we basically just bind to it and destroy it. And this is why there was a little bit more of a bump in severe COVID and more mortality in men, is because looks like about 10% of them developed these autoantibodies. Women did not. So the question that these researchers were asking is why? Because in general, what you're saying is true. Autoimmune disorders, rheumatoid arthritis, multiple sclerosis, all these sort of autoimmune disorders are more common in women. And there's some theories as to why. It may be a lot related to a placental transfer of antigens during pregnancy. So women that have had children may have an increased risk. But there's lots of things that we can do to reduce our risk for autoimmune disorders from a dietary perspective. I think that one of the big factors in autoimmune disorders is nutrition. Deficiency of any of a number of nutrients can lead to our immune system going awry. That may increase our risk for developing an autoimmune disorder. For example, type 1 diabetes is well known to be an autoimmune disorder, and research a long time ago, 70 years ago or so, showed that vitamin D3 had a dramatic effect in reducing the risk for type 1 diabetes, and we now know why that happens. So another thing that can happen, I'll use type 1 diabetes again, is that early exposure to different types of food. And in type 1 diabetes, there appears to be a reaction that takes place to a protein in milk, bovine serum albumin, that can lead to what are called cross-reacting antibodies. Our body recognizes that protein as not being us, so it develops antibodies to it, but sometimes those antibodies can cross-react to our body's own tissue, and that's when we get an autoimmune disorder. So there are a lot of dietary clues to to look at when we're looking at autoimmune disorders. Gluten sensitivity, poor digestion, lack of digestive enzymes, all of these things can lead to these cross-reacting antibodies and increased risk for autoimmune disorders.
Very fascinating, extremely fascinating. And I'm assuming stress adds to that as well.
Well, yeah, stress is going to disrupt our immune system, and anything that disrupts our immune system throws it off balance. And
Yeah.
we get a lot of focus, especially during this pandemic, on low immunity, and we want to avoid that. But the other aspect of immunity that gets distorted often by stress is hyperimmunity. So that's why allergies and autoimmune disorders are really flared up during stress.
Well, I live in Atlanta, Georgia, and the allergies are horrific. I didn't start developing them until later on. And so, I mean, is there any way to people out there who do have allergies? I'm not highly sensitive, but I'm just wondering if there are people in the audience who do have very high sensitivity to, the outdoor environment. What is your suggestion? I mean, do you have supplements that could offer?
Yeah, in any sort of allergic or inflammatory condition, what we want to do is we want to reduce the allergic threshold, and we want to help our body have a tamer inflammatory response. So we can do that through nutrition, eating an allergy-free diet as much as possible. We can go on an allergy elimination diet, and then see how reintroductions of different foods work with us. If you are sensitive to a food, generally you'll see a worsening of your allergic symptoms. There's a lot that we can do with nutrition to reduce the inflammatory response. So long-chain omega-3 fatty acids from fish oil, and fish oil supplements have been shown to be very helpful in both autoimmune disorders, chronic inflammatory disorders, and allergic conditions like asthma. So making sure you're getting at least 2,000 milligrams per day of those long-chain omega-3 fatty acids each day can really be helpful. Next, there's a lot of flavonoids that can be helpful in allergies and inflammation. Flavonoids are plant pigments, and these compounds are referred to as nature's biological response modifiers. That's a big term. What does it mean? It means that these compounds are natural agents that can modify our response to the environment. And this is noted by their anti-cancer, anti-inflammatory, anti-allergy, and anti-aging effects. Where do we get flavonoids? We get them from richly colored fruit primarily. Berries are rich in flavonoids. Citrus are rich in flavonoids. We can also take flavonoid-rich supplements, and grapeseed extract is a great one for allergies, and a good general overall antioxidant. 100 to 300 milligrams per day has been shown to be very helpful in a number of different conditions. In fact, one condition that I'll touch on is high blood pressure. There have been studies with grapeseed extract, and in mild to moderate high blood pressure, which accounts for about 90% of the cases, grapeseed extract, 300 milligrams per day, can bring it down to the normal range. It's one of the best natural approaches to blood pressure lowering, and it works by helping the arteries become more elastic. As we age, sometimes we get hardening of the arteries, and when those hoses get stiff, blood pressure increases. So if we can restore that elasticity, and that's what grapeseed extract does, then that blood pressure can come down. And very, very a safe and effective way to lower blood pressure. Very simple.
Wow, that's fascinating. And what was the name of it again?
Grapeseed extract. Yeah, grapes, and especially grape seeds, are very rich in these flavonoids. There's a lot of grape seeds and grapeseed skin that are left over from wine manufacturing, so it's a very inexpensive extract to make, and it has a lot of great science behind it, showing benefits for a lot of different health. It's one of the most useful natural products that we have. I think since I brought that up, there's 4 supplements that I think everybody should be taking. One is a high potency multiple vitamin and mineral formula. I'll explain why that's important for fighting stress and in boosting mood and supporting our immune system in just a minute. But a high potency multiple vitamin and mineral formula that provides the recommended dietary allowances is very critical, especially during this stressful time. Next, everybody should be taking extra vitamin D3, 2,000 to 4,000 IUs every day. You know, if we look at this pandemic and we see what happens when blood levels of vitamin D3 are below a threshold, we see that there's almost a 98% mortality rate. And just a little bit above that threshold, it drops to about 2%. So vitamin D3 is critical for a lot of reasons, very important for our immune system, both in fighting autoimmune disorders and supporting the immune response. Next, these flavonoid-rich extracts that I mentioned, like grapeseed extract. You can take curcumin, you can take pine bark extract. There's so many different flavonoid-rich extracts or polyphenols that we can get from our diet and supplements that we should be flooding our system with. And then lastly, those omega-3 fatty acids. And if we're talking about stress, anxiety, depression, insomnia, these foundational supplements are absolutely critical. If we look at fish oils, for example, studies have shown that they help our body and mind dampen the stress response. And this is really, quite profound, because we know that, based upon a lot of science, that fish oils offer protection against cardiovascular disease. Well, it may be that some of that benefit is related to its influence on our mood, our attitudes, and our ability to deal with stress. The work with fish oils in attention deficit disorder or anxiety or depression is really impressive. There have been studies with fish oils in college age people, and the results are just they're just so amazing, because did you know that in that period of a person's life, that's one of the highest risk times for suicide?
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah. And so what they did in this one study, they looked at these freshmen and sophomores in college who had never been on an antidepressant drug. They enrolled them in a study, and they gave them fish oils or a placebo. And the group that got the fish oils, oh my God, it was curative. It was curative of their depression very quickly. Most antidepressant drugs take a couple of weeks to produce benefits, but with these fish oils, the results were almost instantaneous. So very important to get adequate levels of those omega-3 fatty acids. And talking about the flavonoids, they've done some work with adolescents where they just had them eat blueberries. Just a serving of blueberries reduced brain inflammation and raised mood scores dramatically. So food is medicine, and we can choose foods that can reduce inflammation and help us feel better. And if we do that more days than not, we're going to be okay.
Michael,
I'm sorry.
I was going to say, you were talking about fish oils. Isn't it true that they've been doing some trials with concussion and brain, and finding that really high doses of fish oils are helping with brain injuries?
Yeah, brain injuries are really interesting because it's not only those traumatic acute brain injuries, but the repetitive brain injuries. We need those building blocks, and fish oils contain these building blocks for our nerve cells. And if we don't have sufficient levels, and about 90% of people in the UK and also in North America, we know based upon blood levels, they're deficient in these long chain omega-3 fatty acids. And if you don't have these building blocks, your brain isn't going to form properly, and it's not going to respond to injury or challenge or stress properly. And we got to give our body and our brain what it needs, and it needs these long chain omega-3 fatty acids. And that's one of the reasons why I say that's a foundation supplement. And there's been some great work at Oxford in looking at the influence of fish oils in combination with B vitamins for Alzheimer's disease. And what they found is something that we all know in this field. There's a synergy among these nutrients. While vitamin B, the complex, has been shown to be helpful in boosting cognitive function as well as mood, and so has fish oils. When you combine them, the results are even more dramatic. So it's not just one thing. Our body is a system. And that's the whole idea and the concept behind the longevity matrix. What I am trying to help people realize is that everything is connected.
Yeah.
We talk about holistic philosophy. When you start looking at what makes us who we are, it's very interrelated to what we think, what we feel, what we experience, what we eat, the way our genes work. Everything is related. So when we are trying to be the best version of ourselves and we're trying to live longer and as healthy as possible, we have to take in all those factors. And if we do, they all are interrelated, and it helps everything work better together.
Yeah.
I got another question for you. Can you talk about the 7 steps to a stress busting attitude?
This is one of my favorite topics, because it gets to kind of the core of how to build a better life. And the first step I call prime yourself for success. In my book, I highlight a priming exercise that I've developed and utilize many times during the day sometimes. But the typical version that I teach people is it's my form of meditation. I learned just from studying and trying different techniques that trying to quiet my mind, that was it was almost impossible. So I asked myself the question, hey, what would happen if I flooded my mind instead of trying to quiet it? What if I flooded it with the feelings that I wanted more in my life? And so I developed a meditation where I start out by breathing through my nose, and I pull down in succession the 4 things that I want in life. I want love, joy, peace, and happiness. Some people may have other things that they want more, but those are really powerful because we can associate to those feelings. So my first phase of this priming exercise is I do this 7 times, where I literally pull down from the universe the things that I want: love, joy, peace, and happiness. And after I do that 7 times, the second phase, I put my hands on my heart and I take a slow breath in. And as I breathe in, I say, I am love, I am love, I am love, I am love. And then I exhale. And when I exhale, I associate to feeling love. And I do that for joy, peace, and happiness. And I do this all 4 times. And you don't have to be strict on the numbers. And I tell you, sometimes when I'm lifting weights, if I'm doing lat pulls,
Yeah.
I pull the same things down to me. I just think there's something about engaging your mind and your body and your heart, everything, pulling from the universe the things that you want, that are very powerful in getting those things. So priming yourself for success is number 1. Number 2, I talked about it a little bit, becoming an optimist. We are by nature optimists, so we need to nurture that capacity. Next, number 3, you have to become aware of your self-talk. Pay attention to the way you communicate because to yourself, because every thought, every emotion, every experience you have makes an impression on your subconscious mind, and the quality of your life comes down to the quality of those impressions. So you can use your conscious mind to keep conditioning that subconscious mind by becoming more aware of your self-talk and using self-talk to produce those positive impressions. And one of the best ways of using self-talk is becoming a good question asker, because whatever question you ask your subconscious mind, you will get an answer. And so pay attention to those questions. I gave an example earlier. Why does this always happen to me? What did I do to deserve this? Those are not going to lead to positive answers.
Right.
So ask positive questions. In the book, I try to help people associate to the things that are really great in their life. What am I most thankful for?
Yeah.
What am I most happy about in my life? What am I most excited about? Who do I love? Why do I love them? Or why do I love that? If you start asking these sort of questions, the answers you get, they feel so great. Here's a great one. When do I feel awe? How does that feel? When you start imagining how these things feel, it's amazing, because you're taken back and you realize the things that you do on a daily basis that nurture those feelings. Like, as I'm talking, I'm looking out and I've got a great view out my window. I have a mural on my behind me of my favorite golf course. But outside my window, I have these majestic, beautiful mountains that I can look out and see, and that's awe-inspiring. So that's really important. Next, employing positive affirmations. These are very helpful. Again, they're producing conditioning on that subconscious mind. A good affirmation is, I feel the love and joy, peace, and happiness flowing through me with every heartbeat. That's a great one. When you do these things, you can tell, just, I can't do them without becoming exuberantly happy, because I've done them so much, and it's just, these are triggers for me. Next.
You've anchored them.
Yeah,
Michael, can I hold you there? Because we need to go to break, but I want you to hold that thought and give it to us when we get back. You're listening to Crack the Podcast with me, Sandy Sedgbeer, and my co-host, Rebecca Shaper. And this week we're exploring science-based natural approaches to breaking free from anxiety, stress, and depression with leading authority on natural medicine, Dr. Micahel Murray. We'll be back in a few moments with more from Dr. Murray. Stay tuned.
The Real Conscious Connection. Om Times Radio. IOM FM. Om Times Magazine is one of the leading online content providers of positivity, wellness, and personal empowerment. A philanthropic organization, their net proceeds are funneled to support worldwide charity initiatives via Humanity Healing International. Through their commitment to creating community and providing conscious content, they aspire to uplift humanity on a global scale. Om Times, co-creating a more conscious lifestyle.
Hello, I'm Sandy Sedgbeer, host of Om Times Magazine's flagship radio show, What is Going On? My passion is sifting through information, research, and innovations from new thought teachers, speakers, and researchers, pushing back the boundaries of what we know about life, energy, metaphysics, and the universe. I love shifting perceptions about who we are, why we're here, and how quickly impossible becomes normal when we open our minds, expand our awareness, and accept that the only limits that exist are those we place upon ourselves. So if you're the kind of forward-thinking, eager investigator of what lies beyond the current reality that most perceive, why not make a date to come play with me in the field of possibilities at 4 p.m. Pacific Time, 7 p.m. Eastern Time every Thursday, and together we can discover what's really going on.
I love my sister.
My heart doesn't see race. Love is love.
Welcome back, Dr. Micahel Murray. Please continue.
Yes, this is fascinating.
Well, the last two are just again simple things, but they make a big effect. The next is practice positive visualizations. I'll tell you a funny story. At least it was to me. I was giving a lecture, actually a couple of them, to over 1,500 medical doctors and 1,500 pharmacists in Mexico City. So it was quite a big event. And at the lunch, the organizer, he took me to this beautiful park. And this guy was just amazing. He was one of the most gregarious, happy people that I ever met. And I like to ask questions of these people to get clues. And I asked him, I said, "What's your passion?" And he said, "I love to ski." And I said, I looked around, there was no snow on the mountains. And I thought, geez, what's going on here? So I said, "Where do you ski?" And he goes, I go to Colorado every year for a week. And just when he said it, he just was so happy. And so I thought about it for a second, and I thought to myself, I wonder if this guy's like me. And I'll tell you what I mean by that in just a minute. And I said to him, "How often do you think about skiing?" He goes, "At least once an hour." And he laughed. And I have some silly memories that I think about at least 4 or 5 times a day. Some days more for some reason, but we all have had successes, and we've all had moments that we've been proud of ourselves or felt joy, and we have to anchor ourselves in those moments. And when we see ourselves, in those moments, we're visualizing that event, and we're feeling those emotions. And this guy was so happy because he flooded himself with these past experiences. And I found it was easier for me, maybe because of it's just easier for me to recall memories than it is to create dreams and, trying to create future events, seeing those. It's easier for me to see the moments that I've experienced that have meant something to me. And we all daydream. And I just encourage people to pay attention. And you can do positive visualization exercises, but I think if you get in the habit of just reliving some of your best moments, it'll be better for you. And the last thing is to learn how to laugh long and often. And it's amazing how most of us adults have forgotten that. So if you've forgotten what that's like, then find yourself around a 4 or 5-year-old, because that's a magical age. They laugh all the time. And yeah, laughter is the best stress buster known, and next to love, it may be the most powerful medicine.
How do you feel about nature?
I love nature. Walking in nature, and I said, the feeling of awe is something that I really appreciate, and I feel that most when I'm in nature. Think about the last time you felt awe. For me, if I think about when I felt that emotion, it's when I'm in nature. And research is getting so specific, where they really dialing into different things. They looked at positive emotional states, and they looked at love, joy, happiness, and awe. And what they found is that there's different areas of the brain that are triggered with each of these emotions. And then when they looked at which of these emotions have the biggest impact on the quality of our lives, what was interesting is that awe was the highest one up there. I think it's because of just it just puts everything in perspective. It's an interesting emotion to truly be in awe. And if you've never looked at all the stars and realized that there are more stars in the universe than there are grains of sand on Earth, and you've not felt awe, you need to take another look.
I agree with you 100%. I love looking at the stars. I love walking on the beach. I think nature is just so important, in
Yeah.
our life, and the appreciation of nature. So I've got another question. I'm going to have to put my glasses on so I can read it.
Yeah.
So my next question is a little long, so I'm going to have to read it. You say that the lower the level of serotonin, the more severe the consequences. For example, low levels of serotonin are linked to depression, with the lowest levels being observed in people who have died by suicide or attempted suicide. But you also say that research indicates that SSRIs can actually increase the likelihood of suicides in adults and children. That seems a bit confusing. Can you explain that?
Yeah, it's these drugs.
Yeah.
I've written on the subject many times. They've kind of created a narrative of how these drugs work, but they're not as specific as what they want us to believe and what the research shows. And this link between fortunately, it's not that common, but there are people that have an adverse reaction to these SSRIs, and it does increase suicide ideations, and it does increase actually acting on those impulses, both in children and adults. And this was known from the very beginning when the research first started being done on Prozac, that these drugs had this chance. And I think they're biochemical band-aids, but they don't really address the underlying physiology. I'm really looking at some really complicated aspects of brain physiology right now, and the interesting thing is that our brain and every cell in our body is trying to restore balance, because that's when it functions best. And there's an innate drive in every cell to create that balance. What we're learning through all this sophisticated science is that trying to manipulate that balance artificially with a drug creates other imbalances.
Yes.
And the core approach has to be utilizing natural compounds and our own physiology to help restore balance. And blocking the uptake of serotonin, or binding excessively to a dopamine or a GABA receptor, it just disrupts our internal thermostats and balance regulating mechanisms. And when I look at some of these new discoveries and how the drug companies are trying to address it, it's just the logic is not there. It's clear that it's going to fail. I think that one of the things that will come from the COVID-19 pandemic is the appreciation of the role that nutrition and natural approaches to immune health play. Because when the data, when they get done analyzing all this data, I gave you the examples of vitamin D3. There's other examples as well. What they're going to see is that nutrition and natural approaches were the best protectors against morbidity or mortality to this virus. Genetics plays a role, but not as big a role as our environment and our nutrition.
I really like that answer, because mental health is a huge issue in my family. When I grew up, both parents died by suicide, and my brother was diagnosed, and my mother, with paranoid schizophrenia. But I always felt there was something better for them. And I just wish now that I wish now, with your knowledge, how I could have applied that back when they were still alive. So this is fascinating. I love it.
Let's apply it to let's take that information and apply it to your life. A couple of things I want to point out, and then I'll circle back with this. But the stigma of or the stain of trauma on a psyche is generational. They did this famous study with mice where they took mice and they exposed them to an electric shock. They exposed them to cherry blossom essence first, and then they gave them an electric shock. And they quickly conditioned these mice that when they were exposed to cherry blossom essence, they were going to have this electric shock. So eventually, they didn't even have to give them the shock anymore. They'd give them the exposure to the cherry blossom essence. They go into full panic mode. They had those mice reproduce, and their offspring, even though they never got the shock, as soon as they were exposed to that cherry blossom essence, they went into full panic mode. And this effect lasted 4 generations.
Wow.
4 generations. So there's something that happens. It's not a true genetic transfer, but some sort of imprint happens and stain, and that has to be cleansed. And I think that's where energy medicine really comes into play, and love. I think love that vibration can help free. It's like there's a little dark spot on the light bulb, and we just clean it off with that love. Now, there's also genetic factors. We know that with a lot of health conditions, in particular, the way the brain works. And so in the future, there's no question that we're going to be utilizing genetics and epigenetics and genetic markers for using the right nutritional approaches for that particular person. We're not there yet, but we're getting closer and closer, and it's really important. The brain is the most metabolically active organ. It is just amazing what's going on there, and nutritional inadequacies and environmental effects and genetics all play a big role in how well that brain works. And we're starting to see more and more researchers coming to that realization, just how important nutrition is. A deficiency of any single nutrient can lead to altered brain function, and that can demonstrate itself by something as simple as insomnia or depression, or something even more serious like schizophrenia or bipolar. So there's ways we can address those issues through feeding the brain what it needs and helping determine what special approaches that person may need because of their genetics or family history. So I think your parents, and maybe before them, they've given you some insights on how you need to approach your life. It's like, here's an example. So if you had a mother and father that had a heart attack or a stroke, you're going to take steps to help yourself have the healthiest heart and vascular system as you possibly can.
Right.
Most of us now have had people either in our family or we've known develop Alzheimer's disease. Nobody wants that, but that's a condition that doesn't have to exist. We can prevent that. Even in people who have a very strong genetic predisposition, we can still prevent Alzheimer's disease. We can do that. The data shows that without question. If we help our physiology, our brain and body work the way it's supposed to work by feeding it what it needs and supporting that physiology, we don't have to suffer Alzheimer's disease.
Yeah. Michael, you advocate, obviously, a health promoting lifestyle and diet. But you also talk in the longevity matrix about other ways that in the interim, people can start addressing some of the issues of mood, etc. And you talk about natural agents like 5-HTP and SAMe and L-theanine and pharma-GABA. Could you speak a little bit about those?
Absolutely. 5-HTP is the intermediate between tryptophan and serotonin. And when our brain is low in serotonin, we become depressed. We crave sweets and other carbohydrates. We don't scurry well, and we tend to have low endorphin levels and just a lot of issues that come from having low serotonin levels. The drug approach is to use an SSRI, but we can utilize a nutritional approach until the diet and lifestyle and attitudes really start kicking in. And that best nutritional approach is 5-HTP. 5-HTP has been studied head-to-head compared to an SSRI and was shown to produce better results with no significant side effects compared to an SSRI. SSRI side effects are real, and some of them, weight gain, loss of interest in sex, don't get enough attention. So those are real side effects for a lot of people, and we don't see those with 5-HTP.
What about L-theanine and pharmaceuticals? What role do they play?
L-theanine for it's a great sleep agent for kids. It has some real effects in attention deficit. Some good science there as well. It's a natural stress buster, as is. I like pharmaceuticals for adults a little bit better than L-theanine. GABA is a natural calm that produces feelings of calmness with greater mental focus and clarity. And supplementing with pharmaceuticals has been shown to produce that effect. It can help improve scores in math for people getting ready to take a math test. It can help them feel relaxed if they have to give a talk, all without producing a depressed mind or depressed thinking. So I like pharmaceuticals a lot. There's so many natural compounds that impact the mind. You mentioned S-adenosylmethionine or SAMe. It has some very good antidepressant effects. I like curcumin. Curcumin's this is a natural anti-inflammatory compound that's found in turmeric. Many people are familiar with it now. I'm very proud that I helped introduce curcumin to the natural product industry back in the 80s. This compound has really significant effects if you use a form that's highly bioavailable. There are two forms that I really like. One is called theracurmin, and the other is called Mariva. They both have very good science behind it. But theracurmin was studied in UCLA by some of the leading researchers in dementia and Alzheimer's disease in the world. And the results that they showed were phenomenal. Not only did it improve cognition, but it improved mood, and it reversed some of the early damage that was being seen in these people with poor cognition in the key areas where that brain function occurs. So we not only see symptoms improve, we not only see performance improve, but we have evidence that we're actually reversing those early stages. So the earlier we get started with some of these natural anti-inflammatories, the better.
You get involved in, a lot of, formulating. As you said, you brought a lot of products to the market. Is there a way that you could take some of these really good natural resources that you've just been talking about and put them into one giant super pill, that we could say?
Like superfood.
I put together on my website, drmurray.com, I answered the question, what do I take? And I make a little bag. I should have one here for when I do these sorts of interviews. But I actually take 27 different supplements, and some of them I'm taking 3 or 4 tablets or capsules a day. So I take a big baggie full of supplements a day. If you got it into one pill, it'd be a gigantic pill. And just to reinforce this again, supplementation is part of a program. I think there are 4 cornerstones to good health: a positive mental attitude, health promoting lifestyle, getting exercise, getting enough sleep, avoiding harmful health habits, eating a health promoting diet, and then supplementing your physiology with dietary supplements and other measures. For 30 years, On average, I've had 2 bodywork sessions a week, some sort of bodywork, massage, chiropractic, stretching, all sorts of different modalities out there. But I found it really useful. I think there's something about being touched and also making sure that your mechanics are proper. So I do it all. I want to be as healthy as I can because it feels good. The theme of my book, The Longevity Matrix, is living better, stronger, and longer. If you live better, what does that mean? It means doing things that are going to be good for yourself and your mind, body, spirit, soul. These are things that help you live better. And we have to work consciously to make ourselves stronger in every way. Our will, our discipline, our commitments, and our conditioning. And we have to look at every area of our life, not just our body, but our social environment, our friends, our family, our support structure. And how can we make them stronger? And when we look at all the facets that make our lives, and we look at ways that we can make them stronger, that's the idea. That's the concept of building a strong matrix for longevity. And we can do the same sort of thing with our body. We can do the same thing with our mind, our lifestyle. Just ask yourself, how can I make things better, stronger, so I can live longer?
Yeah. Michael, we're almost out of time, but for anybody who's listening who is on an antidepressant or a pharmaceutical drug, if they wanted to start taking some of the things that you've talked about, is it safe to take them together?
It is. There's been a lot of theoretical concerns, for example, with taking 5-HTP because it's a serotonin precursor with an SSRI, that you're going to see what's called an overproduction of serotonin. We get what's called a serotonin syndrome. But I haven't seen it. And I think it's just a theoretical concern. And I'm not using or recommending really high doses of 5-HTP. And ideally, we're going to be tapering off the SSRI. So I think they have to work in conjunction with their physician and really stress to them that they want to get themselves off of these drugs. With the SSRIs, it's less of a problem than it is for like benzodiazepines, the Valium type drugs, or things like Ambien or Xanax. With those drugs, we have to be a little more careful, and we have to taper off more slowly if someone's been on them for quite some time. But for the antidepressants, I don't think there's much of a concern.
Well, I think we're almost out of time now. There was one part I don't think we got to.
Am I the only one?
Can you still hear me? You
Yeah.
can hear me. Okay, I thought I'd lost contact again. It's been a day of losing contact. But you have a wonderful 4-level program guideline that you offer people that, depending on the circumstances, that you recommend. At this level, you might want to do this, and at that level you might want to do something else. So we don't have time to go into that now, unfortunately, but you've very generously allowed us to give away the chapter from your book on stress and depression. And honestly, it is so thorough. I would recommend everybody go to the crackthepodcast.com website, download that PDF, and then go and get the book, because the whole book together is absolutely fabulous. Michael, come back. We want to talk to you more about this, because it's so important for us to find natural ways, to boost our health and our well-being. And, you've got all the answers.
Well, I really appreciate it. And a lot of times people read my books, and when I am interviewed or they come to see me individually, they expect me to talk to them about only diet and nutritional supplements. So I like to delve into these areas that are really fun and exciting to talk about. So I thank you for creating this vehicle for me to share.
And Michael, thank you so much. I froze. Y'all froze. So I don't know what happened, but I do want to say thank you very much for coming on. And I could sit here and talk to you all day long.
Yeah, we'll have to do that someday.
It was very informative, and thank you very much.
All right,
Okay.
thank you.
Well, Micahel Murray's latest book, The Longevity Matrix, is available from his website at a very special price of $15. And you get with that a number of bonus publications. And don't forget, you can download a free copy of his chapter on stress and depression at crackthepodcast.com, where you can also sign up for our newsletter, which will keep you informed of future shows. That's it for today. Thank you for joining us. We'll be back again in 2 weeks' time. Till then, it's goodbye from me.
And goodbye from me.
And don't forget, there's a